What are the superpowers of fat? Well, one thing, fat is everywhere on the body except your eyelids, labia, scrotum, and shaft of the penis. Those are the only places where you cannot find a layer of fat no matter how skinny you are. So if it is a full layer, if it is fully part of our body ecosystem, it must be important. It must have something more to do than just be something that we shame. So, one of its superpowers is that it feels really nice, right? It feels mammalian. It is something that feels soft. It makes spooning and cuddling feel really lovely, and it brings a lot of comfort when we're touching other humans, and even when we're touching ourselves. It's a pillowy layer, but just because it's pillowy, that doesn't mean it's not strong. It is super strong. Think about it. We have muscle strains, we have joint sprains, blah. But have you ever heard of a fat sprain or strain? No, it's a really, really strong layer: skin, fat, muscle, bone. I recommend getting a Gil Hedley subscription, and you can actually see him do this, where he takes a piece of cadaver fat, he attaches a weight of 50 pounds, and he just holds this piece of fat up. Fat is so strong, right? We can backpack, we can lift weights, we can really move our skin around, and it's not like we have a fat shearing happening. It's a really, really strong property. And to me, it kind of looks like a spider web with big droplets in it, and that's why it's so strong. It has this tensile strength with this wonderful warming material. Also, fat is really complicated to get into our bodies and into our cells. So our macronutrients: sugar, protein, and fat. Fat, I'm going to talk about later. Let me talk about the sugar and the protein. When we eat it, our pancreas goes pew, 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 and sends out enzymes, and then it gets into our small intestines, and then dispersed into our bloodstream and into our different cells. Fat, on the other hand, has our gallbladder, and it makes bile salts, and it gets globbed on with the bile salts, and then it gets sent into our lymphatic system, and then into our liver to then be packaged into things you might have heard of before: LDL, HDL, IDL. If you've never heard of those before, that's totally fine. They're kind of like these beautiful spherical goblets that are globbing onto the fat. Then from the liver, it goes into our heart, this fat, and then pumped into our arterial system, and now into the bloodstream, and now finally it can go into our cells. If you need to listen to that part 5 more times of how complicated that was, I definitely narrowed it down and tried to not use as much vocabulary, but you can spend a lot of time learning about how fat gets into our systems. So it is something that is sacred, something to be respected for just how impressive it takes to each of your cells to have a little bit of fat in it. Our body is also very intelligent, and it uses different fats and can store fats that we ate that are more toxic into our superficial fascia, into that skin fat muscle interface. So when we eat avocado oil, coconut oil, ghee, high quality animal products, our body then can make hormones out of those. Our bodies can make wonderful supple skin on the outside with those. They even line, every single nerve is lined with fat. And we like to use those fats to make those products in our body. When we go to McDonald's and have canola oil and other seed oils and low quality animal fat products, that then, and also too much cannabis, which is also a fat soluble molecule, it gets stored into our fat. And what's so wonderful about this is that when we can then stay insulated, we can have our wonderful curves. But if you are somebody who's experiencing hypertension, diabetes, or other fat pathologies, other fat diseases, which even me saying that, I'm like, if I went around and I was like, oh, I have a muscle disease, I feel like community would support me. But if I was like, oh, I have a fat disease, like people might shy away, right? And we do have pathologies in this fat, and I hope that this kind of shows you how incredible fat is so that we can stop shaming when we do have issues with our fat. Because if you are trying to lose weight, it might feel like you're having the flu because you stored types of fat that just aren't as easy for your body to work with. And let's give everybody space if they're choosing to go down that route. And if people are not choosing to lose weight, totally fine. We get it. We can respect just how complicated it is, because I just talked about how complicated it was to get fat into our system. It's just as complicated and even more complicated to get it out. So let's respect how incredible and diverse and complex fat is, just like how incredible and complex these trees and this tree canopy is below me. And it kind of reminds me of all the blood and capillaries that are streaming out into our beautiful fat layers. Is we do have some specialized fat in our intestines that if we injure our liver, if we injure our stomach, if we injure our intestines, there's what is called omentum that moves around and kind of swaddles those organs when they're injured. And so I think, unfortunately, there's not a lot of fat science out there. There isn't a lot of, these are all the superpowers I can really give you about fat. But I know there's more out there. I know there could be more research done. So if you are a researcher, I hope this could be inspiring. Please let me know. If you're not a researcher and you're just, living your daily life, I'd love to hear your questions, your comments, your criticism, your compliments in the space below, and let's have a discussion about this, because I think it's really lacking in our society. One other thing, when I do hands-on healing with this layer, a lot of times I feel potential energy, right? Because fat is potential energy. I also feel those toxins and a little bit of that stored trauma in that space and can honor that layer. And a lot of the times I like to work on a deeper layer, but if I don't first honor and respect this fat layer first, we're not going to be able to really sink in to the other spaces, because it is such a protective layer as well. It also has the property of protection. If you made it this far, thanks for listening, and please share with those who you think could learn a lot from this video too. May your body be verdant, ecstatic, and joyful.